Hey up YouTube, today we have the Runcam Eagle 2 Pro. Now this one's a widescreen camera, which I was very pleased to get my hands on, but it's also 4.3 and 16:9 capable with really good low light handling. So I stuck this straight in the model, focused it up and took it outside to see what it was going to perform like. Wasn't too impressed with this one. Now this is just stock settings, so we'll have to mess around with those first, but pretty grainy experience out here. Now to be fair, it is really dark. You can see this is recorded on my other Runcam, my Runcam 2 hat cam, and the difference is, you know, night and day. But these are stock settings, I haven't changed anything yet, and I've directly wired it to the LiPo in this model, so some noise could be coming from that. Let's have a look at that first. Now it's only a 2S battery in this model, but arming and disarm didn't produce any extra noise really. Pretty much the same with punching out either. I was doing fairly high for this model throttle stabs on this one, and yeah, nothing really there. A little bit of noise in the background, but nothing that would produce the noise that I was seeing outside. So let's have a look at these stock settings. So provided you've still got access to the back of the camera, this one's nice and easy to change. There's no adapter cables or anything like that, just a dedicated plug for the OSD, plug in your little control board and you are good to go. Now the day and night setting comes set as colour, so unlike something like the Runcam Owl, this one will stay colour even in low light, apparently. Now the hertz setting has a little difference here because I'm mostly running from LEDs in here. That's going to be appropriate for CFLs or possibly sodium lights that use the street lights. And I'm definitely going to have NTSC over PAL, so I've got 30 frames a second rather than 20 flibble. Now, as I said before, this one's 4.3 and 16:9 compatible, and I've been dying for 16:9 cameras. I really want to fill the goggles up as much as possible, and so far, every 16:9 camera I've used I've preferred over 4.3s. Even if the light handling one wasn't as good, I've preferred the aspect ratio. Until now. Now this one's a little funky because the widescreen image is cropped from the 4.3 image, so it's not really what I'd expect. And I'm switching back between the 4.3 and the 16:9 here. I immediately like the 4.3 stretched across the image rather than the 16:9. I really wasn't sure about this. Now I've tried flying a few times with it and I can fly both fine, it's not a problem, but I do prefer the 4.3 image stretched over 16:9. I'm not sure because it's a crop or whether I've just got so used to flying 4.3 images stretched to 16:9. So for the moment I'm going to leave it on 4.3 stretched to 16:9. I'm curious if anybody else has found this out there, of whether they prefer it, even though they normally prefer widescreen images. But that's how I liked it, so that's how it's staying. And if we go into image enhance, we get the sharpness. Now by default this was at 6 on a scale of 15, so that's around about the middle, and you can see there's a few jaggies around the edges. If I turn this right down, those go. It's a little softer, but they've gone completely. There's also an edge control that does just the edge, but they're quite similar in how they function. Looking around like this, I think I prefer both of them completely off. It's a lot more natural image and it's pretty sharp anyway. You can see it a lot clearer if I go all the way to the 0 and then back through to 15. It's max to minimum instead of gradual. Quite an extreme difference there. Now adding just a couple of points of edge does sharpen it up nicely, but for the moment I'm going to keep it completely off. Saturation I've got no issues with, so we'll leave that at default. Okay, gain, or max gain I should say. This is basically a boost. This is what's going to determine how much you can see in dark spots and light spots, but you've got to find the nice balance, because if you whack it up to 9 like it was at default, you saw what I saw outside, which is a pretty monochrome brown grainy image. This spot you won't be able to see at all if you didn't have anything, which is shown by 1, and then 9. In a well-lit area like this, it didn't really change too much with wide dynamic range on, but in a really dark area, it makes a difference between being able to see and not see. So if 9's too much, let's go outside and see where the sweet spot is for okay in daylight and still not crap at night. So 9 was default, the previous outside shot, and if we flick it back to 1, you can see that really doesn't help me much at all. But slowly sliding through the scale, we can see that there is a fairly good sweet spot. Now mid-distance here, I could kind of see the cars in the car park, but on 5 I couldn't. 6 I could, 7 it started to pixelate a little bit. So for me, 6 was the sweet spot, and that's where I'm going to start, so I can just leave it on one setting, attempt to fly at night and during the day. So this is the same settings outside. There's a lot of darkness here and ambient light, and it dealt with it pretty well. A little bit on the orange side, but not too bad. However, when you pointed directly at a really bright floodlight with a dark background, it did haze over the image a little bit, as you can see there. Even with that said, it handles the situation a lot better than most of the cameras I've got. That colour's lovely. Right, time to fly it. This was the first time I'd flown in this car park, so I wasn't sure how bad interference and signals bouncing around was going to be. Turns out it was pretty poor. I also found out not too long after this that I wasn't on the correct channel, and I was getting some interference from one of the other lads that had his FPV equipment on. I wasn't really focused on that at first, because as I was flying around, I was getting this strange darkness, lightness swell in the image. Now I was speaking about this at the same time as a couple of other people were watching it, and they couldn't see anything. And on the DVR, you don't see anything. I was only seeing this in my Eachine VRD2s. I didn't see it in Fat Sharks. It wasn't visible, I should say, in the Fat Sharks that were also on at the same time. Only in these VRD2s. It wasn't cripplingly bad. I could fly with it, but it was a swell in the darkness and lightness that I wasn't used to, and it was kind of consistent. So I swapped it to 60 Hz to see if that made any other difference. And again, nobody else could see anything, but I could see them. In the goggles, that is, just not on the DVR. Odd. So after a few laps around here, I just kind of got used to it and actually really enjoyed flying in the car park. Now you'll see if you look at straight lines, there's still a few jaggies on there. So I think the Runcam, even though it's got it all turned off to do with sharpening and edge sharpening, it's still doing a little bit of something in there by default with all those off. Once I got on the right channel and only the guys flying were turned on, it seemed to quench the problem a little bit, but it still was there if you looked for it. Really curious if anybody else has come across this, particularly if it's just with the Eachine VRD2s. Anywho, here's how the Runcam performs in a few different lightings, and none of which, apart from this car park, did I get those brightness swells. Okay, something I keep forgetting to do because I haven't had much sunlight recently. It's kind of gone behind those clouds now, but I-force
showed some, sorry, iForce 2D showed some flips with his Eagle, and it was kind of whiting out. So it's only a button flip on this one, so it won't be pretty, but it should show whether I'm having that same issue or not. So let's try some ugly flips. Wow, those are ugly. It's a rough day up there for a boat. Wow. Really shaky flip, but hopefully we'll be able to see whether it's whiting out at least or not. I can't remember if it was a forward or a backwards or both, so we'll try a few of each. Ah! I'm using the big Bugs 3 battery as well, so it seems a bit better if I'm throttling up a little bit. Those are some ugly flips with that big battery. Actually, let's try a couple of flips not facing the sun, just in case there's something going on there as well. Okay, that's enough of those.
So, as was pretty clearly demonstrated there, the Runcam Eagle 2 Pro does suffer from momentary whiteouts when flipping, and that was flipping forwards and backwards, both in and out of the sun. Slightly worse into the sun, but this is not one that I would want to put on anything that I was going to flip fast on, acro quads and 3D quads and that type of thing. Now, if you've got a flying wing or a quad such as the Bugs 2 here, that really isn't a flipper, so to speak, it's just for FPV, it's a cracking camera. It's one of the nicest experience I've had for FPV yet. Stick it on a pleasure cruiser and it's big smiles all the way. It's not quite as sharp as some of Runcam's other offerings, such as the Swift 2 and what have you, but it's an extremely versatile camera. We've got 16:9 and 4:3 options. Now, the 16:9 comes in at 170 degrees and the 4:3 comes in at 140 degrees. I much preferred the 140 degrees, even stretched across the 16:9. That was a bit of a surprise and a slight disappointment because I really did want 16:9, but as long as the goggles are filled up and I don't feel like anything's distorted massively, which it didn't feel like to me, I'm down with that experience. The colour's really superb and the light handling, apart from that little momentary whiteout and fast flips, is stonking. I really like it. And the icing on the cake for me is the low light handling. It really does allow you to fly in next to no light whatsoever. Certainly lights that my hat cam can't pick up very well. Only you know if this camera's suitable for you, but for me, it's a keeper. I really like it. That's all for this one. See you in the next.